All right, good evening. Good evening. Thank you for that. I'm riding on a bus in Central America, trying to read Harry Potter in Spanish, but distracted thinking about a girl. I'm a junior in college, and I've just finished a study abroad program in Nicaragua. But I'm not in Nicaragua. I'm on this bus headed back to that country after spending a couple of weeks up in Mexico. And while I'm trying to focus on Ron Weasley and Harry and Hermione Granger, my mind keeps drifting back to the time I just spent with that girl named Ava. Now, Ava and I had been dating for a while, and we did different study abroad programs. Mine ended a few weeks earlier than hers, which gave me the idea to take a 3-day bus trip north to Mexico to surprise her. I arranged for a young man named Carlos to meet me at the bus stop in Mexico. Carlos arrives with his small sedan. I hop in, and as we're heading to a party where Ava is supposed to be, Carlos turns to me and says, "Hey, how about you hop in the trunk of my car, and then you can jump out and surprise this girl?" I agree. And Carlos pulls over, pops the trunk, and I contort my body into the trunk in between the spare tire and these fried pork rinds I'm told are for the party. And as he shuts the trunk on me, something snaps in my brain and I realize nobody knows I'm in Mexico. And what is Carlos's last name? I pound on the trunk, and Carlos, no last name, starts driving. I'm panicking, I'm feeling claustrophobic, and the only thing I can think to do is to dig in my pockets for my Swiss Army knife. And I realize it's in my backpack that's in the back seat of my captor's car. The car stops. I hear some muffled voices, some scuffling at the back of the trunk. The trunk slowly opens, and I see fingers and legs and a dress and a girl. It's the girl. It's Ava! And I'm crying, and she's crying, and I unfold my body out of that trunk, and I'm overjoyed and feeling sheepish for doubting Carlos's intentions. Ava and I spend the next days together seeing where she takes classes and meeting her friends. On day 3, we visit San Miguel de Allende and walk through the town square hand in hand. We watch at the movie theaters the sequel to The Fast and the Furious, dubbed in Spanish. And I'm more interested in watching Ava than I am watching Vin Diesel go más rápido y más furioso. I'm in love, and I'm thinking about what it would be like to spend the rest of my life with her. Because you see, before Ava, I dated a lot. In high school, I went to so many homecomings and proms in different cities that I bought a tuxedo at the age of 16 because it was cheaper. Settling down just wasn't my thing. I mean, I lived in 15 different houses before I was 15 years old. All with the same family. My parents just like to change jobs and houses a lot. And to be honest, I thrived in all of that change. And so sticking with one person in one place, that felt scary and vulnerable. And so there I was, sitting on this bus on my way back to Nicaragua, wondering what was going to happen between me and Ava when I got home. We got off at one of the bus stops, I think it was in El Salvador. And as we're waiting to reboard the bus, there's this Canadian family with 2 young kids, and one of them is whining about the food, and the other is complaining about the heat. And I'm already feeling exhausted, and I feel antisocial, and so I buy a newspaper and pretend like I don't speak English. We reboard the bus, and I take my seat in row 5, right on the aisle, and rejoice as nobody comes to claim the window seat. And I'm smiling, and I stretch out. And then I frown as the Canadian family takes all of row 4. I pull out my newspaper and double down on my no hablo inglés routine. There's a few more scheduled stops where people are getting on and off the bus. And then the bus slams on its brakes, and I pop my head up, and I see masks, guns, 3 men wearing masks, holding guns pointed at our bus. And then the first shot is fired, and then another shot. And the bus driver screams, "Bájense, bájense, escóndanse, hay banditos en la carretera." And I'm yelling at the Canadian family and trying to get them down in between the seats and stuffing their kids as close to the floor as I can. And I'm nowhere near the back of the bus, able to escape. And I contort my body as close as I can to get down to the floor. And I'm scared, and I do the only thing I can think of doing, and that's dig into my backpack, searching for my Swiss Army knife. And I hold that pathetic, tiny blade in my hand, and I think I'm too young to die, and I love my family and my friends. Another shot is fired right up at the front of the bus. And then there's silence. And a moment goes by. And I peek my head around the seats. And I see that nobody is boarding the bus to try to rob or hurt me. And in the next moment, I hear someone shout, "Ay, necesitamos un médico, un doctor, a doctor." And in the next moments, I learn that one of the bullets had passed through the windshield, through 2 empty seats, and straight into the chest of a man sitting in the row 3 aisle seat. A man who was sleeping next to his fiancée, on their way to Costa Rica to be married. A 33-year-old man named Jorge Alberto. And in the next several minutes, someone tells me that there was a woman sitting in the row 2 aisle seat. A woman who had gotten off at the last bus stop, right before the tragedy that happened. And I don't know that woman's name. And I don't know if she ever knew how close she came to tragedy. But I know that as I looked at that seat that now only held a bullet hole, I realized I will never know when I am only 1 bus stop away from the end. I honestly don't know what happened. After that, the news articles say we were there for about 5 hours waiting for the police and the coroner to come. And I can't even tell you if we took that same bus back to Nicaragua, if it was even drivable. Psh. But what I can tell you is that several days later, I arrived home safely to Nebraska. And I started to write a song, and I learned some basic chords on the guitar. And a couple weeks later, Ava returned home safely to Nebraska. And I sang her that song. And I asked her to marry me. And she said yes. I still enjoy traveling. And I take more risks than most people think are necessary. And commitment It's still scary. But I've also learned that when you love something, it's okay to sink some roots down deep. And this winter, I'll celebrate 11 years living in the same house. The longest I've ever lived anywhere. And Ava, well, back in high school Spanish, you got to choose the name you wanted to use. And Ava is the name that Trisha chose all those years ago. And this January, Trisha and I will celebrate 20 years of marriage. With a surprise trip to Central America. Thank you.